Loss comes in many forms, and usually in unexpected ways. It can be devastating, leaving you facing an uphill struggle to go on with life without someone you thought would always be there. But life does go on, and even in the deepest despair, we can find hope. Welcome to Grief Relief with your hosts, Doctors Gloria and Heidi Horsley, brought to you by the Open to Hope Foundation, helping people find hope after loss.
Hello, I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley with my co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, you know, we've got a really interesting show today because creativity has been such an important thing in many of the lives of the people that we've met while we've kind of been on our own grief journey over the years. And we're going to talk about how that creativity, how loss inspires people in their creativity. And we've got a couple of very interesting guests for you today. And our first guest is going to be Mary Skinner. And Mary is very interesting because she's a documentary filmmaker, and she had an experience with her mother, so I can relate mother-daughter, and an experience growing up with her mother who had had a lot of loss, and she'll be talking to us about it, and has gone on to use that creativity to make a fabulous documentary film. So that's very exciting to talk to her about that. And then we're going to have Billy Bensing on our show. And Billy is an amazing singer-songwriter, and he is going to sing for us at the end of the show, and you're going to love his song, Butterfly. We've kind of gotten a little preview of it, right, Heidi?
Absolutely, it's beautiful, and he's going to sing it along with his girlfriend, Kelly. And I love how all of our guests are using creativity to transform their lives after loss and to give voice to something that's sometimes very hard to talk about.
Absolutely, yeah, and the depth and the feeling that comes up when we do that and when we deal with our losses in that way. Making meaning out of loss, right, Heidi?
Absolutely, very, very important. And one thing that I said to Billy before the show is, I love how Kelly, his girlfriend right now, is singing with him, because it really shows people how after somebody dies, you can continue bonds with them. And he has continued bonds with his girlfriend, Sally, and yet reinvested in a new relationship. Our hearts are so big, and we can love many, many people.
Absolutely. And then Mary talking about how she's continued bonds with her mother through her documentary filmmaking.
Yes, and really captured her mother. And when I saw the preview of the clip and rollout we're going to see, I really saw Mary looking back at me through her mother.
Great. Well, Mary, let's get to you today.
Hi, Mary.
Hi.
Welcome.
Welcome to the show. You know, I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate your being here today, and the reason I do, because I know other documentary filmmakers, and they are very hesitant to come on to be guests. They love to be behind the camera, and so appreciative that you're willing to come out and be with us today.
And Mary often is behind our camera.
Right, exactly.
Here on the show.
Yeah, exactly. So Mary, tell us about your journey and about your mom.
Well, my mother was born to a Polish Catholic family in Warsaw before the war, and when she was just a little girl, the city of Warsaw was bombed, and 50,000 people lost their lives, and within a year, her brother and sister had been deported to slave labor camps, and they never returned. Her father was killed, and her mother, who was sick, died. So she was foraging for food, and she got caught in a roundup and sent to a sub-camp of Buchenwald.
And how old was she?
She was just 14.
So when she was 14, she basically lost her entire family, you're saying? Her siblings
Exactly.
and her parents.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she spent almost 5 years in that, 4 years in that camp, and afterwards, as a refugee, she was very afraid to go back to Poland because she was from a family that had, members had participated in the army and in the underground, and they were considered to be enemies of the Russians, and there were many, many people that continued to lose their lives after the war ended in Europe. So
She was 19 then.
by that time she was 19, and she made her way through Italy to London. Actually, the story is that London at that time was only accepting members of the Polish army and their families. And she was with a group of refugee girls who had been taken in by some nuns in Italy.
Wow.
And there were members of the Polish army in exile in Italy. These young soldiers, without even meeting these girls, agreed to claim that they were affianced to them, that they were fiancés.
That's amazing.
So that the girls could get refuge in London.
Wow.
And so that's how my mother was able to finish her high school education, and she won a scholarship to go to college in the United States, in San Diego.
That's an incredible story, being 14 and basically on your own.
Right. It is.
So she had the refugee experience, which many Americans are well acquainted with, and she had lost her entire family, and she had lost her homeland. Right. And but a big part of her experience in the United States was during the period when we were in the middle of the Cold War. And my father was a naval officer, so she was trying very hard to be a good Navy wife, but she really had this other experience that she could never really acknowledge. And we learned about it mostly through the values that she shared with us, but she was reluctant to talk about her childhood or about Poland because it was painful and because, honestly, it wasn't very popular to be Polish during that time.
And we saw a lot of people with circumstances around World War II that never talked about them. But we're going to do a roll-in of a film clip. Do you want to introduce that to us and tell us what it's all about?
Well, when my mother, towards the end of her life, I felt very, very sad that she was dying, and that generations of Zierzchowskas and Jóźwiaks were dying with her, that she was the last remnant of these people who had lived in Poland and who had preserved their language and their culture and their values, and who would remember them, and no one really knew who my mother was in America. So it was doubly painful for me, and I wanted to try to record her story and to know more about what her childhood was like, and what my grandmother was like, and what my uncle was like, and my aunt, and all those relatives, and I knew about them from the things that my mother had shared, the little stories that pierced through other stories, but I didn't really I didn't really know them, and it seemed very, very sad that all of this was passing, all of this was vanishing. So I became determined to somehow record it. And honestly, it was also a way of dealing with my grief and the loss of my mother. So I went to Poland looking for women of the generation of my own grandmother. And I wanted to see if what my mother had said about her mother was really true.
And so she wrote some things in her journal, and you start the film clip talking a little bit about that. Let's see the clip, and then we'll get back to your story a little bit after that.
In her English practice exercises, she wrote of animals of prey. A peculiarity of hares is that they will return to the place from which they were frightened away, and the dogs will track the hares. Even then, she knew she would never return to Poland. Right before my mother died, I knew I had to return for her to the place from which she was frightened away. I needed to know more about her mother and the Polish women she remembered. And so I went looking for them, steeling myself against my own fears that the dogs would track me. They were ordinary women then, the teachers, the social workers, the nuns, who cared for the war-wounded children like my mother. Maybe the bravest were those who rescued and cared for Jewish children. Only a few are still alive today. Most died during the war or later in poverty, obscurity, exile. In a nursing home not far from what was once Warsaw's vibrant Jewish quarter, I found Irene Sendley. She is said to have organized the rescue of 2,500 of these children. She is 97 today, and she still remembers everything and everyone.
Wow.
Powerful.
It's really powerful.
So that was kind of the prelude to going on and doing it. Talk a little bit more about what then you did with that.
So I had the great good fortune to meet this lady, Irene Sendley, who is now known all over the world for this heroic work that she did during World War II to rescue and save the lives of these Jewish children. And I spent a lot of time with her, and then I made a documentary film about her, which eventually was broadcast on national PBS. But in the process of getting to know her and some of her underground co-workers, I felt as if I was getting to know the women that my mother told me stories about. And
getting to know your mother.
And
Is there
my
a piece of your mother that you may not really have known about?
absolutely, absolutely. And even though my mother died during the time that I was making the film, and even though at her memorial, you know, her funeral, there was only the family members and hardly anyone knew she was even from Poland, and the priest couldn't pronounce her name, and my father didn't even know the names of her sister and brother because she was so private about it. I knew that I was sharing her story and that somehow a piece of her essence and her spirit, the goodness of her, the angelic qualities of her would live on in some way.
How wonderful, and to be able to use this creativity, Heidi, and the ability to do. Had you done other filmmaking before?
I had done short films, and I had done some script writing, but I had never made a feature documentary.
So you were able to take this creative piece of what you have and find it and use it and transform your loss. I love that for our audience and thinking about what piece have they got, what could they do with it. It's very exciting that you were able to do that.
And I think it you know, the thing that I had a mission, it was something deeper and more profound that was fueling me, because honestly there were tremendous obstacles to getting this film done, and for a person like me who couldn't say I had made a dozen documentaries or that I had worked for PBS or any of the, or even that I spoke Polish fluently, I had none of those advantages, but I did have this passion to complete the project.
That's what I was thinking. You were driven by passion.
Right.
To tell this story and keep those memories alive for the next generation and all the generations after that.
So that's filmmaking passion.
Yeah,
I think
love
it
it.
would be interesting now to move on and have you with us, Mary, to talk about filmmaking and music, to have Billy Bensing come on and talk about the loss of his relationship. And we know Billy, and let's greet him right now.
Very good.
Hi, Billy.
Hey, Billy.
Hello.
So great to see
Billy.
you.
Group hug. Hey.
Group hug. Well, come and have a seat by Mary. I'm so excited about this creativity. Do you identify with some of this, Billy, of the
Yeah,
bringing it in?
I do.
Yeah, it's great to have you in. Well, tell us a little bit before I have you and Mary kind of together.
Hello.
You hug too?
Yeah, why not? Hugs are very, very
Right.
healing.
Tell us about your experience and how you used your creativity to work with it.
My first love, an Australian girl, after knowing her for, 3 years, died in a car crash.
Wow.
Yeah, you've got to tell us I know there's one more piece that I think our audience is going to love. You went to Australia and got recruited for Rocky.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, what's it called?
minutes
Rocky
here, I'm gonna
Mountains.
try- Rocky Horror Show.
Rocky
Yeah,
Horror
so-
Show. I love that. Then you can continue on with your story.
That's how I met her, because I was an understudy in the Rocky Horror Show in Sydney, Australia in 1974. And so we had a cast party on New Year's Eve of 1974 with the cast. And Sally was a roommate. And so I was at the party, because I'm one of the cast members. And there she was, and we met, and it was, love at first sight. And I sent you some pictures, and I hope they can put them up. But it was a beautiful love story, and young love, and it was wonderful. And then I went back to the States. And
there you are, right there, right now.
Oh, there she
That's
is.
a great
Yeah, that was
picture.
going back to
I like
at the
that, Billy.
airport. That was at the airport And we were crying, and I was leaving, and she was going to come over to meet me in the States, and then she got killed in a car crash.
Wow.
You know, and so it sort of blew me away pretty badly, because I thought, well, I can't handle the idea that someone I would love so much would just vanish out of my life, and I'm going, that's not fair.
Right.
How could that be? You know, and so I was on a mission to find out. I thought, well, you know, I don't believe in death, and we used to talk about that. We used to feel like we knew each other from other lifetimes, and there was this great familiarity we had with each other, and we'd almost feel like, yeah, I knew you back in the Renaissance, and you know. Anyway, so after she died, I was devastated, and then I thought, well, I felt her with me, and I would smell her perfume, and the perfume was called Je reviens, which is I return in French.
Wow,
It's
that's
a perfume
amazing.
called Je reviens, and it means I return. And I would smell that, and I would feel her, but I couldn't see her. So I really wanted to know for sure that she really still existed. I needed to know that, you know. So I learned some, went to a psychic, and they did stuff that proved to me that she was there, because nobody knew our nicknames, and nobody knew stuff like she'd cut her hair a week before she died, and she showed herself as having short hair. And I said, no, she has long hair, but no, she showed herself to the medium as having short hair. So I went, huh, you know, she's really there. So I learned how to meditate and practice. Oh, I have to show you this. 2 years before she died, she gave me a book called The Projection of the Astral Body. Now, is that a little bit odd or what? And then she said in it, "Tu mon chéri, je t'aime together despite time, space, and one lifetime, Sarah," which was her nickname.
Wow, that's
If
bizarre.
you can focus in on that, anybody.
Yeah.
You know? And so what a coincidence that is. Tilt it. So, you know, and then there's another book she wrote stuff in, and it's like, maybe on a soul level, she knew she was going to go young.
Right,
You know?
right.
And I had a feeling too, because the first song I ever wrote before I even met her, years before, was about my first love dying, and it was like, where did that come from? It was a dream.
And you were a singer-songwriter
and
at
I
the
wrote-
time
yeah,
and wrote a
and
song
I wrote a
about
song about my first love dying, and I'm going, where'd that come from? And then it happened. So,
Tell us how you learned to meditate, because I
Well,
was very
yes.
interested in that.
well, see, I really wanted to know for sure. So I actually was instructed by a clairvoyant to sit in a dark closet with my eyes shut or open, because it's so dark you can't see anything, and just focus on one thing, an apple or love, or just focus on that through your third eye until everything stopped, and that was the only thing that existed. And when that would happen, I would start seeing energy flowing around. In the darkness, there would be light. And so I kept doing this, and it was quite an experience. And I did it for months. And then I started seeing auras. I started knowing when people's birthdays, you know, what if they were in just amazing stuff was coming to me, and I didn't know why, and I couldn't explain it. I would just know things. So after about 5 months, she died in November. In May, I was starting to leave my body. When I was lying down, I would be floating up in the room, and I actually went up to the apartment upstairs and was looking around, and it would only last for a moment, and I go, whoosh. And see, this book talks all about that, and I'd read it, you know, a couple of years
Right.
before. You know, with Sally, we're sitting there going, oh, isn't this interesting? You know,
And then you told me that then you started feeling like it was kind of weird, so you kind of stopped. But
Well-
what I want
well,
you
no, that was after I saw her. So
Okay,
the
so you
third
saw
time
her.
I was out of my body, I saw Sally, and she was just beaming, looking at me with just beaming, and she looked, you know, like angelic and beautiful, but, you know, and it was mental telepathy, and I thought to her, and I said, well, move over to the window, and she walked over to the window, and then she walked back and smiled at me, and then zoop, back in my body, and I realized I was on my side with my eyes shut, and I thought, I just saw her. That was proof. That was what I
Right.
needed. It wasn't a dream.
Right.
If you've
Yeah.
been
So-
out of your body and you've experienced that, you know it's different than a dream.
So you were
know?
connecting with her spirit, and I remember you telling me that it was really comforting
Yeah.
to know that she was okay.
Well, yeah, I needed to know that.
Yeah, which is normal, which a lot of us
Yeah.
need to know. We just
Yeah.
need to know that they're at peace and our loved ones are okay. And
Well,
Yeah.
And we were kind of talking a little bit about people who don't like to share these stories,
Right.
and we hear a lot of them, and people don't like to share them. What would you like our audience to know about this whole thing?
Well, everybody out there, if you're grieving and you've lost someone you've loved, and I've been through this personally, it's really hard, you know, but you got to realize when you die, you don't die. There is no death. You're simply, these bodies are just this little temporary shell we play in for, you know, 50 to 80 or 90 years. The body dies and you move right out of it. And what happens after that, I'm not sure, but I think we come back and do it all over again, you know? And I'm positive of this at this point. I needed to know that, and I found out.
Now,
So
talk to us about your music, and hold up your little album for us, and talk to us about Butterfly that you're going to sing for us in a few minutes.
Okay. Well, this is the first CD, the first recording of Butterfly I did I think I wrote it in 1991. And I had the music, and I thought, fly away, butterfly, and I couldn't think of the words. So a friend of mine named Jerry Lynn went down to the river in the Yuba River where I live in Grass Valley, and he said he felt like Sally came to him and gave him the words to the song. They were the perfect words, you know, and totally fit with the melody, and I'm going to play it for you in a minute. And I really felt like Sally was there. She wanted the song to come out, and Sally wants people to know that there is no death, there's nothing to worry about, and I will see her again.
Right.
And anybody that has passed, you will see again, you know?
That's comforting.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful thing to know.
It's not just hopeful thinking, it's actually the way it is. You know?
All right. Well,
So-
hey, have we got one more minute to wrap up for the show? Is that what we're saying here? Is that right?
1 minute to music.
To wrap up?
So
Oh,
I
to
better get
music.
over
Okay,
there.
so we got to go over. We got 1
Okay.
minute to music, and you're going to sing Butterfly for us. So
Okay,
get over
Billy,
there.
thank
Thank
you.
you, Billy.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mary, for being on. It's been wonderful having you both on. Heidi, what a great show.
It is. And I love how they both transform their lives in different creative ways.
Absolutely. So let's get ready and hear that. And we hope that you'll visit us at opentohope.com, and that you'll hear more of these stories, listen to more music, and also go to Billy Bensing's site at billybensing.com and listen to his music. It's absolutely phenomenal. He has great music, and he also is, this song you're going to hear now, you're going to have the opportunity to download it on iTunes. So thanks for watching the show today, and God bless.
I lie awake on moonlit nights and feel your spirit fill the room. Hear your voice call out to me and smell your sweet perfume. But even though I love you so, nothing seems to ease the pain. Years go by and tears don't dry, longing for your touch again. I know I have to let go. So fly away, butterfly. You've shown your immortality, loyalty beyond the grave. You must have some new rendezvous, another soul to save. I need to heal the loss of you and find another lover's arms. Someone who loves like you, someone with your tender charm. I know I have to let go now. So fly away, butterfly. eyes, I feel so, I just can't hang on to the pain. Break the tie and say goodbye till we someday meet again. You know, we have to let go. So fly away, butterfly. Fly away, butterfly. Fly away, butterfly.